everyone, and welcome to the dangerous and formidable comic book vault. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jason.
And Jason, what is it time for?
Rapid Fire Comic Book Reviews.
That's right, Rapid Fire Comic Reviews. We've got 14 books for you from last week, and we're going to jump into it straight away. But first of all, I want to say thanks to Elite Comics in Overland Park, Kansas for helping us out with the show. If you are ever in the Kansas City area, check them out. They are a fantastic store, and we sure appreciate everything they do for us. Jason, are you ready to jump into it?
Yes.
Alright, we're going to start off with number one's and good jumping on points. Not a whole lot in that department from last week, but there's a couple, and the first of them is
Robin Rises Omega.
Robin Rises Omega. This is a one-shot that starts off the Robin Rises event, and from the interviews I've seen from Tomasi, this is kind of turning the whole Alpha Omega thing on its head. There's a lot of events that do this. This is a really popular 90s thing, where we start with an Alpha, we book in with an Omega. They're both one-shots, but they're not really. They bookend events, and you've got to read everything in between them. So here it's Omega first and Alpha last, because it's like the way it seems like they're going with this. It's like Damian Wayne died, so it's Omega because it's the end. But then we go to some sort of new beginning at the end of this with Alpha. Is Damian Wayne actually going to be resurrected in this permanently? My gut tells me no, actually, just from what I've been hearing from Tomasi. He says we're going to have a permanent Robin at the end of this, and I think that's funny. He says, okay, we've killed enough Robins, we're definitely going to put somebody in the suit at the end of this, and they're going to be there forever. Yeah, right. I don't think you can promise that, but okay. But anyway, so is it going to be Damian again? Is he going to resurrect Damian and keep him there forever, or is this going to be one of those things where Batman has to learn about finality? He has to learn about death. He has to learn to let things go and move on, just like he never was really able to do with his parents. I guess it'll be kind of interesting to see. I really kind of hope that's what it is, because otherwise, this whole Damian death thing is kind of, who cares? We're bringing him back pretty fast, like we always do with characters, and it's just hard to really care. It's hard to have any. It's hard for any of this to emotionally resonate, really, because we do this with characters all the time. Characters in DC and Marvel are very used to seeing characters get their friends die and then come back somehow. So anyway, this is mostly one big giant slugfest. The parademons from Darkseid's parademons show up in this, and they're trying to get their hands on something called the Chaos Shard. So Godfrey is in this, and he seems like a Sonic villain because he's trying to get his hands on something called a Chaos Shard. And yeah, Gilbert Godfrey is a Sonic villain, and he's trying to get the Chaos Shard. Anyway, so he goes up against Batman, who has an uneasy alliance with Ra's al Ghul, also with Frankenstein, and the three of them, with all of Ra's al Ghul's minions, go up against the parademons, and it's one big, huge, giant slugfest. And then a whole bunch of superheroes show up in the middle of this to help out as well. It's really dynamic. The art is great, and it's a lot of fun to read, but I don't love it. Like I said, I'm having a hard time really emotionally latching onto this, and I feel like Batman's kind of out of character, but I felt like Batman's out of character half the time in 52. He's being characterized here more like the Batman and Robin version. I think it was in Batman and Robin, and I guess that is appropriate for this, but the version that experimented on Frankenstein, I guess that's probably why he's in this, in trying to bring Damian back from the dead, which is just so out of character for Batman. I really have a hard time thinking he would ever go that far, and I feel like it's not Snyder's Batman. I feel like Snyder's Batman would never do that, and so this is trying to characterize him that way and act like he's been the same permeating throughout all the books, which of course he's not been characterized that way. He's not been consistently characterized. So anyway, I don't know. I'm sick of seeing Batman punching people, and then it like good guys, characters that we know, and then I'm supposed to be shocked by it. It happens a couple times in this, and it's like if Batman just constantly hits people, it's not shocking anymore. So anyway, lukewarm recommendation for me on this. Pretty good action, but pretty light on consistent characterization. I don't know. I guess I just don't like the direction direction that Batman's going in this and the lines that he's crossing. I'm sure he's going to learn some kind of big lesson about that in this. I'll somewhat withhold judgment. I may continue reading this stuff and see where it ultimately goes, but I'm just not in love with the way Batman's characterized in that. Next up, what do we have, Jason?
Storm number 1.
Storm number 1. This is a pretty solid effort by Greg Pak with art by who is the artist in this? Victor Ibanez. The art's decent. Nothing to write home about, but it's good. It's fine. So this is basically Storm having to learn a lesson about where she belongs, and ultimately the lesson she kind of learns is that she belongs to the Earth. She has this very spiritual relationship with the Earth because of the weather thing. She's got kind of a Gaia sort of thing going on, and she kind of questions whether or not she should be with the Xavier School and whether or not she's sold out to other, from other people that she is supposed to be loyal to in order to serve Xavier. And she has a confrontation with another mutant in this that tells her that that's how she sees her, and she starts to really question it and has a tough time with it, and ultimately comes down on it as, I haven't betrayed anyone. I'm a child of the Earth, and humans and mutants alike need me. And it's a pretty good one and done story. Actually, it sets up some things maybe to get the ball rolling for more story, but for the most part, it's kind of just a single issue that you can read all by yourself. If you really like Storm, if you really like this character, I think you'll probably really like this book. It's not really for me, but I'm not a huge Storm fan. I thought it was fine. I don't think it's something that I would jump onto and keep reading, but a pretty good outing nevertheless. So definitely, I would say this is a good one to start to give a try, especially if you're a Storm fan, because you can read the first issue and you don't have to go any farther if you don't want to, and you still have a pretty solid, complete kind of character arc. What else have we got, Jason?
Super Secret Christ War.
Yeah, this Super Secret Crisis War, Johnny Bravo. This is the Johnny Bravo one-shot. And so what they're doing with Super Secret Crisis War is, of course, this is the big, silly Cartoon Network crossover, taking a lot of different Cartoon Network properties and having them all cross each other's dimensions. And they're doing a few one-shots for the characters that aren't really superheroes in their own right. Characters who are other kinds of things, like Billy and Mandy are getting one, Cow and Chicken are getting one, and so the idea is that the supervillains don't go to those dimensions to grab heroes because these aren't really heroes, and different things happen to get them involved. Mostly silly accident of somebody spilling of one of the robots spilling a drink in the first episode of Super Secret, or the first rather issue of Super Secret Crisis War, and other dimensions getting opened up. So anyway, so one of the robots goes to this dimension, to Johnny Bravo's dimension, to try to find a champion, and he finds Johnny Bravo, and he and this robot has this hilarious paradox with his programming, because Johnny Bravo is a complete idiot, but he can't defeat him, and he can't figure out why that is, and so he's going nuts trying to defeat Johnny Bravo, and it's pretty funny. It's kind of fun to see this character back. It's been years and years and years since I've seen an episode of Johnny Bravo, and this is, by the way, Eric Burnham, and Burnham does a really good job of giving us the tone of that show, giving Johnny Bravo the voice that he had in that show back, and the kind of womanizing joke it permeates throughout this, and he's constantly getting slapped by women because he's a chauvinist, and all that's really funny. So anyway, yeah, I definitely recommend this if you ever watch Johnny Bravo and like that show. It's pretty funny. This is pretty cleverly handled, I thought. Next up, let's go on to some DC stuff, and Jason, what are we going to start with?
Batman 66.
Batman 66? Whoa.
No.
What? Why whoa?
Because they're falling down.
Oh yeah, they're falling down, yeah. So this Batman 66, number 13, what does this say?
Lights, camera, Batman.
Yeah, it's Lights, Camera, Batman. So this is kind of a fun sort of, I don't want to say meta thing, but it's like what if there was a TV show inside of the Batman 66 TV show? And the idea is kind of this grass is always greener sort of thing, where if the world looked as kind of perfect and idealistic and sweet and wholesome as it does in the Batman 66 world, maybe if somebody made a Batman TV show, what people would want would be the opposite of that. And so the people in this really wholesome, sweet kind of world can't can't handle the idea of a TV show that looked like that. And so like that wouldn't sell, that wouldn't be marketable. So what's made instead is a really gritty kind of pulp detective show called The Dark Knight Detective. And this mysterious philanthropist producer makes this show, and it depicts Batman in this really dark, gritty kind of way. And of course, Batman and Robin don't like that because they're depicting them counter to what they really are, and they think that it's ruining their image. And ultimately, it turns out to be a recognizable supervillain who's doing the whole thing. And the way it ends is kind of fun. I really liked this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was really tongue in cheek to kind of play with that notion because, of course, not all that long ago, we kind of had this idea that you could only have dark Batman, and we didn't want to see, a lot of people didn't want to see light and wholesome and silly Batman on TV ever again. And so it's kind of fun to kind of turn that on its head and play with that idea. And next up, what do we have, Jason?
Batman the New 52.
Alright, Batman number 33. This is the end of Zero Year, the epic conclusion of Zero Year. And boy, this is in a lot of ways just what I was hoping for. The ending was surprising and threw me for a loop, and there's a huge revelation about Bruce's past from just after his parents died there that I won't give away, of course, but was really surprising. And I kind of want to read this whole thing together now, of course, naturally, and I'll try to review that on a vault sometime in the near future if I can get around to it, to see how well all of that was set up, because just reading this issue, it felt kind of out of nowhere. It felt like that maybe should have been a thing that was set up and was an idea that was kind of permeating and was kind of there all along, but you didn't know it. Maybe it was, though, and so I need to go back and read all of this and see just how well that fits in, or if it really feels like it comes out of nowhere, like it kind of did here. But it was jarring and surprising, and made me really think about Batman in kind of a different way, and so I really liked that. He really matches wits with the Riddler here in just the way I was hoping for. There's a whole bunch of riddles that Batman has to solve. They're really smart. I love the way that Snyder writes them. I love how far ahead Riddler is thinking and how everything he says means something. This is a wonderful epic showdown, and as I was hoping, this really feels like the big be-all end-all Riddler story that I've always been wanting to see. As I keep saying, my reservation is it's a little bit too big for the Riddler, and yet it's just fantastic. I mean, I think for Snyder's run, for the way that he's kind of somewhat redoing the history of Batman, I think it works really well. I'm kind of in love with this. I think it's really, really, really good. So, certainly, of course, if you haven't been reading Zero Year, you need to read all of it. I think if you read this issue by yourself, it might blow you away and you'd want to go read the rest of it. Certainly wait for trade and pick the whole thing up when it comes out. Alright, next up, we're going on to our last Batman thing for the week, which is
Batman Eternal.
Batman Eternal number 16. This series has right now just sort of kind of lost me. I will say that there's some things that were set up really early that are finally coming up and paying off here. There's a major villain that was introduced early on in the first couple issues, and I was sort of like, where is he? And he finally pops back up here, so that's good. But the thing I'm not liking about this right now is that Batman is kind of lost in the shuffle. It just doesn't feel like his story right now. And frankly, it just feels like so many different stories going on right now that are not really connecting up. All of these different subplots that haven't converged yet in any meaningful way, where I'm just not with it. It's not gripping me the way I like it to, and I'm having a hard time grabbing onto really any piece of it, especially because there's a lot of characters here that I either don't care about or don't like. I'm having to read about Joker's daughter. I just don't like her. I still can't get a handle on what the heck she is, and I really feel like reading about her that nobody really has a good handle on what in the world she is in this. There's some really strange and awkward dialogue in this, and that's been a problem here and there throughout this, but this one especially, there's just some really weird word choice and strange, just unnatural dialogue. This one is Ray Fox writing, and one of the problems I've been having with this too is that because it's so many different writers on this book, and artists too, it's just jarring issue to issue. It never feels like the same book. A lot of the time it doesn't feel like the same book. From issue to issue, it feels like a totally different writer because it is a totally different writer. And I just feel like a weekly book written by a whole, committee of people. First of all, maybe that's not a good idea, but just on the face of it, or maybe, I feel like it could be handled better, because I've read committee-written books that feel a lot more organic than this. AVX springs to mind, but that wasn't a weekly book, so, well, anyway. Yeah, so, I don't know. I can't recommend this book right now, but I keep, going back and forth on it. It seems like every other issue I'm like, I don't like this, and then, oh man, what an interesting thing, I'm sure glad I'm reading this. So, I'm gonna keep reading it, because I feel like important things are maybe gonna, permeate throughout the rest of Batman that come from this. But yeah, ultimately, I'm not digging it right now. Alright, more DC stuff. Jason, what do we have here?
Superman.
This is Superman number 33, and I could not be more happy with what Jeff Johns and John Romita Jr. are doing on this book. We've got this other Superman in the book right now who, as I was telling you last time I talked about this book, comes from another dimension. He's human. He was sent from to another dimension by his parents in a very similar fashion to the way Superman was sent by Earth, and he was kind of the last child of Earth, and then he and then he comes back to Earth and finds that the Earth is alive and well, and everybody's here, and he's got all these powers. And right now, Superman is kind of showing him the ropes, and he's having to learn what it's like to be on Earth and be human, and he doesn't understand anything about our culture. And seeing Superman having to deal with them is really very interesting, and there's a lot of kind of really fun old school kind of secret identity stuff with him having to understand why Clark Kent has to exist and why Superman can't just go around and tell everybody that he's Superman. I really love the panel time that Perry White is getting in this. He's getting a lot to do, and I'm surprised by his presence in this, and I really like him. I'm kind of hoping that we see Clark go back to the planet during this, and I feel like Jeff Johns is really establishing a lot of things to try to get us back to something more akin to the Superman status quo that we all love and know and love. I don't know if that's happening, but it looks like that might end up happening. But anyway, it's really fascinating, and there's just a lot of really good kind of family themes and stuff playing into this. I'm very impressed with it so far. Jason, our last DC book. Are you enjoying that?
Yeah.
Is that pretty good?
Yeah.
All right. What's our last book for today?
Red Lantern.
Red Lantern's number 33. We've got Guy Gardner going to Jon Stewart for some advice in this. There's a whole lot of just them sitting at a bar talking while he's trying to figure out what in the world to do about Atrocitus. And thematically, this book is dealing a lot, as I guess it has been from the beginning, with this notion of whether or not rage is a emotion that can be used for the betterment of people, and or whether or not it's just a bad emotion all the time and you need to quelch it. Can rage be constructive? And we get to see that argument played out between Jon Stewart and Guy Gardner in this, where of course Jon Stewart is on the side of rage is not a useful emotion, and then Guy Gardner in kind of a clever way tries to kind of prove him wrong. Meanwhile, we've got Atrocitus still kind of posturing for his takeover of the Reds, and he's captured one of them, and I'm enjoying this still. It's fun. I'm liking the contrast between Atrocitus's ideology and worldview and that of Guy Gardner, but I'm already missing Supergirl, and I didn't talk about this last week because I didn't make a show last week, so I didn't talk about Supergirl losing her Red Lantern ring, but I thought all that was kind of rushed. It happened too quickly, and I didn't even 100% buy how she lost it, since that's supposed to be really hard. I guess it's the only way you could do it. It was okay, but considering that she had been dealing with her rage for so long, and then she has the ring for, you know, what, like maybe 3 or 4 months of publication, and then or maybe it was longer than that now, but it didn't feel that long to me. I don't know, I would have liked to have seen that played out a little bit longer. I didn't feel like ultimately a lot was done with it. It was sort of like she just gets the ring, and then, oh, she's dealt with her rage and now she's okay, but I don't know how much we really got to see her deal with it. So I don't know, that was a thing, and I really enjoyed the dynamic with her on this team, and I'm gonna miss that. I kind of wish we had that for a little bit longer. I don't mean that she had to be a Red Lantern forever, but like, you know, Guy Gardner's been one for quite a while now, and I know he doesn't have his own book, but I really feel like the whole her being a Red Lantern thing shouldn't have just been one story arc. But I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. I'm missing her in this book already, and I felt like they shoved her out in kind of a fast sort of cheap way, or at least, you know, easy sort of way. All right, let's go on to some Marvel stuff. Actually, I've only got one other Marvel thing right now till we get toward the end. Yeah, so we'll do one Marvel thing, and then we'll jump over to some other companies. So, Jason, what do we got?
Original Sin, Daredevil 6.
Okay, so this is Daredevil number 6, and as Jason said, this is an Original Sin tie-in. I'm really liking the Original Sin event, and one of the reasons I like it so much, so far anyway, is because, well, I guess it's actually not that far away from being over, but one of the reasons I really like it is that the tie-ins don't feel intrusive because they matter for these characters. Now, some of them make more sense than others. Some of them feel like they're retroactively throwing in too much stuff about characters' origins that we maybe should have known already, and they feel way too afterthoughty. Or maybe I've just read so much Spawn that bothers me more than it should, or bothers other people. But anyway, with this one, for instance, and we're going to talk about one later that does this also, we quickly get a flash of the big fight where all of these different superheroes learn some kind of truth about themselves. And then it goes on to the personal story. And the one with Daredevil here is not some big crazy revelation that like shakes the foundation of like how he became who he was. It's about his mother. And it's about his mother and his father, and I'm not going to reveal what it is that he learns, but what it does is it leads him to go try to find her, because he wants to know if the memory that suddenly he got is really true or not. So he had the kind of this repressed memory that came out during that about his father, and so he goes to find his mother, and it turns out that she's been jailed, and so he goes to try to find out why exactly that is. One of the things I really enjoy about this issue is that Wade talks a lot about the unreliable nature of memory, and Wade has done a lot of really great realistic stuff with senses and sensory perception, and making you think about the way that we as human beings perceive the world, and how faulty and imperfect our ability to sense the world around us is. And he does that here with memory. And as he has before, it's really thoughtful and really interesting. It makes you think about all that in a totally different light. The art in this, as usual, and this is not the same artist as we usually get. This is Rodriguez, but it looks really good, and it's to the same kind of style that this book usually has. There's some really interesting panel layouts in this, and again, a lot of stuff kind of evoking the way Matt Murdock perceives things, and trying to let the reader perceive things in a similar sort of way. And the ending surprised me, and I felt like it shouldn't have. When I got there, I was like, oh yes, of course that's what's happening. So anyway, as always, this is really good, and it didn't feel intrusive. This didn't feel just like a tie-in thing. So if you're reading Daredevil and you're like, I don't want to deal with an Original Sin tie-in, don't worry. You don't need to read Original Sin. You don't need to know anything except for what you get in this. Oh, there's an eyeball that, there's this plot device that gave Matt Murdock repressed memory back. That's all you need to know. Wow, really, really good stuff. Next up, we're going to jump very quickly to Dark Horse and look at
Buffy the Vampire
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, number 5. This is, as far as I can tell, the end of new rules, and where our heroes get to at the end of this is really surprising and really interesting and exciting, and I cannot wait to see where things go. I started off really liking this, and now I'm, like, really into it. I don't want to, as always, give away what happens at the end of this, but if you're a Buffy fan and you haven't been reading Season 10, especially if it's because you haven't read 8 and 9, I think it's pretty jump-onable, having read the first 5 issues of it. I think maybe wait for the first trade, or go back and try to pick up the issues, but even if you haven't read 8 and 9, I think this is pretty readable, and I think that if you know your Buffy really well, it brings you along okay with the stuff from 8 and 9, but it goes back to so much really cool stuff from the series, both Buffy and Angel, that I think you'd really appreciate it and really enjoy it. The stuff that's done with Dracula in this is really fun, really amusing, and when you get to the end of it, really touching and kind of a little bit sad, but funny all at the same time. I really like where he and Xander are at the end of this, and we get a really kind of fun fight where they bring back Dawn as a giant, and I never liked the Dawn as a giant thing, but what they do with it here is fun. And anyway, like I said, I don't want to give away too much stuff. This is all about the consequences of being able to make up rules of magic. So they've got the vampire book that started off the Buffy series, and there aren't rules now, but if you write rules inside of it, suddenly that's what the rules are, and it's a crazy amount of power. And so, of course, it's a big power struggle, and it's a big question of who should be allowed to write these rules, and that kind of thing. And so we've gone all the way from Buffy as a lowly slayer to Buffy might have to help write the rules of magic. Crazy stuff. So anyway, take a look at this. I'm very, very, very impressed with it. Next up, we're going to jump over to IDW. We've got a couple from that company, and what are we going to start with?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So, Turtles in Time, number 2, and this kind of goes to Ninja Turtles 3 a little bit. It's not that plot at all, but we do see the Turtles in feudal Japan, and we do see them wearing samurai costumes, and that's a lot of fun. And just getting to see that in a more serious, in a you know, just a better story, it really is fun. I'm not real crazy about the art in this. The Turtles look really strange. They look like their faces are melting, and I guess there's going to be a different artist for each issue. These really feel very one-shotty. There's kind of a Return of Bruce Wayne thing going on with this, where it's the Turtles being thrown into all these different time periods from going all the way back to prehistory, just like Bruce Wayne did, all the way up. So we started with prehistory, and now we're in feudal Japan, and then next time, guess what? We're going to do pirates, which was also a Return of Bruce Wayne thing. What I like about this is that it's what I was hoping it was. The Turtles go to feudal Japan, and they deal with Splinter and Shredder back in their old selves, and they even get to see themselves as children. And like the way they meet themselves seems a little bit easy. It just seems like just kind of out of nowhere. Oh, look, it's Hamato Yoshi. Why? It'd be nice if there was an explanation for why just, you know, we're thrown into random place in feudal Japan, and it just happens to be where we were born. The people that we used to be before we got reincarnated. What I don't like about this is that it's too fast. There's a lot done in 22 pages here, and that's good, but I wish this was the whole miniseries. I wish that they could really spend, you know, a good 3 or 4 issues in this time period dealing with seeing what their parents were like, and maybe it's good that they don't spend too much time with them, because of course that would maybe affect the future and stuff, but it does feel a little bit like it's glossed over. Like, this seems like this would be the important part of this miniseries, and it seems like it's just a footnote, and I felt weird about that. But the issue itself is really quite good. And then next, Jason.
The X-Files.
X-Files number 14. If I had one word to describe this, it would be thrilling. So, there's an alien that takes over Mulder and starts actually telling Scully stuff. Yeah, he's like, monologuing and explaining things. We've got an alien explaining things in X-Files. It's amazing. And for a minute, you're like, holy crap, we're going to learn everything. We're going to finally understand this whole universe. And as often happens with X-Files, they give you just enough information to almost get satisfied and then mostly be really frustrated. And that's one of the things about X-Files is that, you know, you watch it or you read it in the case of the comic book, and you're doing it because you sort of enjoy that feeling of frustration. This is really, really, really good stuff. This arc so far is brilliant and is the best arc of this series thus far. I really like the stuff between Krychek and Skinner. It's really dark and kind of scary, and you're sort of wondering what Skinner's going to do with Krychek, because Krychek kind of ruined his whole life earlier, and now he's back, and he thought Krychek was dead, and now he's got a chance to kill him again. And then Scully having to deal with this alien in Mulder's body is really interesting, because, you know, she's being faced with this thing that at one time she thought couldn't possibly exist. Now she's got proof, of course. Now she knows that it exists, and she's trying to get as much information out of it as she can, but of course also she's afraid for Mulder. And then the cliffhanger's interesting. So I don't know. I'm really impressed with this, and as always, I feel a little bit lost, but less so than normal with this book, and it's a real page turner. Next up from Image, we have Trees. This is by Warren Ellis with art by Jason Howard. This Trees number 3. I don't have a lot to say about this. I'm still interested in this series, but I really kind of think I might stop on it and read it when it's in trade, because this is one of those series that I'm having a hard time keeping up with it month to month, because there's not really definitive starting and stopping points. It really kind of feels like just here's the next 22 pages instead of a story that's really told in a serialized narrative. But there's a lot of really interesting gender role stuff in this. That's what I really kind of latched onto, where we're really exploring this post-apocalyptic world with pseudo-post-apocalyptic. There's a society, it's working, but you know, these alien tree things came down and nobody understands them, and they've messed with the way that people live their lives, and so life is very different. And anyway, there's this kind of underground, scary society that this woman has become a part of and kind of gotten trapped in, and she's kind of being objectified and womanized, and she's having to date this guy that she doesn't really like, and she doesn't really want him to be her boyfriend, but she's doing that just to survive and to make it, and she's kind of looking for something better. And so there's a lot of stuff in this about like how over history men have subjugated women, and how men have treated women, and how they end up how sometimes women end up looking at themselves as objects despite themselves, because that's how men look at them. And this kind of takes that to a big extreme. And I thought all of that was really interesting and kind of telling about, you know, our society and stuff. And, you know, we like to look at things, I think, like we're a lot more, like we don't have as much sexism that way as we used to, and like we're getting a lot more progressive on those sorts of things, and I think we are, but a lot of that is still there, and it seems like in the society set up here, it's gotten worse. And anyway, so that's the stuff I really latched onto. I thought it was really interesting, but I can't speak to the rest of it so much, just because it's, like I said, it's hard to kind of keep in my head month to month. So that's obviously going to be a very complete piece that you want to read all together. I would really suggest waiting on for trade on it, unless you're collecting. Next up, we're going to go on to the Jason pick. And Jason, what was your pick for this week?
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles again.
Again, yeah. So Jason wanted me to once again review Ninja Turtles New Animated Adventures, and this was another one that gave us some more of the Lego story in the back of this, and that's what's really worth picking this up for. The other two little stories are okay. There's a story about April having to stop the Krang from mutating an elephant in the zoo. There's kind of a animal cruelty message there, and then it's not, you know, horribly heavy-handed, but it's kind of what you would expect. It's fun, it's okay. And then there is another story about Raphael having to learn a lesson about being kind of street smart and keeping his wits about him, and as always with Raphael, not letting his emotions take over, and you know, being resourceful. And then but then at the end we get more of the Lego story, and it's really the Mirage comics, the first story just played out in Lego, and it's really funny because it takes itself so seriously. And I wish that they would put those Legos out, because the Legos that the minifigures that we have for Ninja Turtles look like the ones from this show, but what we have inside the comic are turtles that look a lot more like the movie Turtles or like the Mirage Turtles, except that they do have different colored headbands. And I don't know, it's just the dark, gritty feel juxtaposed with Legos is really kind of fun to read and really hilarious, and I kind of hope that they release that thing in trade by itself, because that little three-part story is really fun. And then we've got our blind grab this week, and this week's blind grab is...
Wasn't No Sin, Amazing Spider-Man.
Yeah, Amazing Spider-Man number 4. So, yes, of course, I've reviewed, I think, one issue of this, and I've been doing the... I've been doing the miniseries that Slot's been doing, but I haven't been reviewing this week to week, and I was very curious about the original Sin thing, so this maybe I shouldn't have done this for Blind Grab. Maybe I should have just put this in normal Marvel, but I didn't. I ended up just not getting anything else for Blind Grab this week, so this is what I picked. And anyway, this is okay. I like things about it, and there's other things I don't like about it. Slot still has that weird character thing where sometimes page-to-page characters don't seem like the same characters. There's a scene in this where Peter Parker just kind of suddenly freaks out, in my mind, kind of for no reason. I mean, I can see why he's upset, but then he doesn't act like that at all after that. He gets a lot more mellow and level-headed afterwards, and I just don't know why. Sometimes it just seems like drama for the sake of drama. But he rescues this girl that he finds out, and this is how it ties into Original Sin, because of course he discovers some big secret that's related to him that he didn't know, and it's that there's another person that has spider powers that didn't get them from Spider Island, that had them already for about as long as he has, I think. And she ends up calling herself Silk, and she has this really cool costume that she makes from her own organic webbing, and I thought that was really kind of fun. So seeing their dynamic together is interesting. They have this natural connection together being spider people, which is kind of weird, but it could be really interesting, and where it goes at the end was kind of a little bit surprising. And again, it's one of those things that shouldn't have been. I guess it makes sense, but I'm like, oh wow, really? That's where we're going with this. Okay. This in certain ways kind of feels to me like what the whole Alpha thing could have been. It's like, if Spider-Man's going to have a sidekick, if he's going to train somebody, wouldn't it be cool if he trained somebody that also had spider powers? That's a neat idea. So that's kind of what's going on here, and, you know, I'm intrigued. I still don't like Slot's Black Cat. That's kind of the other, you know, thing I'm resisting about this. And finally, back issue of the week. What do you have, Jason?
Batman Detective Comics.
In honor of the Batman 75th anniversary, the official day was last week. I thought I would review Detective Comics 866, which is a book that came out in 2010. This is by Denny O'Neil, with great art by Dustin Nguyen, and also some stuff by Derek Friedolfs. This is a kind of throwback issue, sort of. And of course, Denny O'Neil loves doing stuff like that. He loves homaging old Batman and playing around with you know, a lot of older versions of Batman. And so what this does is this gives us an in-continuity flashback in kind of a Silver Age Batman style, which I thought was kind of a fun way to do it. And remember that this being 2010, this is before Bruce Wayne came back. It's just before that happened, and so we have Dick Grayson in the Batsuit, and I had to keep reminding myself of that reading this, because I'm so not accustomed to that anymore. And he kept talking out of character, not sounding like Batman. I was like, why is he talking like this? Oh yeah, he's Dick Grayson, okay. And so anyway, basically the gist of this is there's this amulet. It's kind of one of your standard artifact plots, and there's this amulet that the Joker is after, in the past that Batman finds out about in the, or that Dick Grayson Batman finds out about in the present, and so we get this flashback about what exactly happened with it. It has to do with the Order of Saint Dumas. It's interesting that according to this, Batman knows about the Order of Saint Dumas so much earlier than when he first deals with Azrael. And I almost want to go back and look at Nightfall again to see if in that he knew about Saint Dumas. I didn't remember that. I thought that was all news to him. But in this, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was a real thing. I thought it was a myth. And he finds out about it all the way back when he's got like the 50s Batman car. And so there's a lot of kind of fun, really, really old school Joker stuff in this. And then it's all about a guy who gets thrown in prison for something he didn't do. He's set up by the Joker, and then you get to the end of it, and what happens with him is really, really sad. This is a pretty good standalone issue. I would definitely recommend it if you can get your hands on it. Not brilliant, really not Denny O'Neil's best work, but certainly a fun kind of throwback thing for that middle section, and I enjoyed it, definitely. So anyway, I want to say thanks again to Elite Comics for helping us out with the show. If you're ever in the Kansas City area, check them out. They're great. And Jason, thanks for helping me out reading all of the issues.
Dog. That's funny.
Yeah, does he look like a skeleton?
Yeah.
So, thank you for watching. We sure appreciate you, and we will be back with you again next week with more rapid-fire comic reviews. Jason? Can you say bye?
Bye.
Happy reading.